Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Try Line in partnership with Socks. It's Little and Large. Here we are. Little, how are you?
I'm very good, mate. Yeah, I'm very good. Stayed up a bit too late watching the Ryder Cup last night, and been really thinking about. I really feel sorry for whoever's judging the BBC Sports Personality Team of the Year award, given that the Red Roses won at the weekend, women won the Euros, and now the Ryder Cup. What a terrible, terrible spot to be in. That is. No one's. That's an impossible decision to look at.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? And just on a few of those golfers on either side, actually, either side of the pond, if any of them played rugby, there might have been a couple of yellow cards dished out, mightn't there? There was definitely some emotion. It was getting raw out there, wasn't it? DeChambeau's got a red card written all over him, hasn't he?
100%. I reckon Lowry might have one or two in the back locker as well.
Yeah, big time. But we're not here to talk golf. I mean, we're definitely not qualified enough to talk golf considering our recent round together. But should we just jump straight in there? And obviously, the biggest result and the biggest game I think that everybody's talking about that's just gone this past weekend was the Northampton School for Boys versus Millfield. 36 all, mate. Absolute points fest. Just an unbelievable arm wrestle. Two amazing school programs going at it. Two really famous rugby programs going at it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sounds like a great game, doesn't it? 36 all. Yeah, such a tight affair between those two, and like you said, two absolutely cracking school rugby programs going head to head. How tense must those final minutes have been in that game? If you're Northampton School for Boys, you get a chance to. It's not very often you get that close to taking Millfield scalp. So, but a fantastic draw, and it sets it up for the rest of the season, really. And I think obviously everyone's been playing a lot of good rugby in lots of good conditions at the moment as well. So good to see running rugby out there and good to see lots of tries being scored. But again, sounds like an absolutely fantastic game of rugby.
Belter, the conditions were brilliant actually. I mean, I had a game on Saturday afternoon for the men's one of the men's teams I coach, and it was running rugby, offloading rugby. But going back to the first 15s, it does mean that Northampton just slip out of that top three. But when you think about who they're playing, you think about their fixture list, ditto with Millfield, it's high risk, it's high reward, isn't it, when it comes down to the Daily Mail trophy? And I just love the fact that some of these first 15s now are going out there looking for a fixture, looking for the best schools out there. It doesn't really matter geographically where they are, sometimes meeting halfway, making operations and logistics far easier. But let's face it, if you're into school first 15 rugby, you want to see the likes of NSB and Millfield going toe to toe.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the strength of the school programs, isn't it? I mean, there's so many cracking fixtures every weekend. When we look at and review the previous weekend, and we look ahead to what's coming up. I mean, there's just absolutely great fixtures all over the place. And if you were traveling every Saturday to watch one great fixture, I don't know which one you pick because every weekend there's an absolute belter. So I'm glad that some schools are now starting to play on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays and Friday nights because it means you just can get a bit more out for your money. Coming up this week, I think we've got Seppo versus Kirkham Grammar. Who doesn't want to be at that game? It's going to be an absolute belter.
That's going to be on Wednesday. That's a beauty. And just talking about Sedberg, and as you say, the midweek. So on Thursday, if we go back before the weekend, they played Ipswich and they are not letting up, mate. Are they? I mean, let's be honest, 66-12. The points difference is almost out of reach. It really is getting to that. We're getting to October half term, and I will say it first. Their points difference is going to be unattainable, I think, by any schools. We're going to have to see schools put cricket scores on other schools, which we don't want to see at school first 15 level. But 66-12 against Ipswich, they've basically got, I think it's an unblemished record, isn't it now? So played 4, won 4. They've got the 4 try bonus points. They've played some absolutely big dog schools as well. So they are 6 merit points total. Mate, what can we say about this Sedberg team?
I don't know. You can't really say much that hasn't been said before, can we, Russ? Really, because we really admire the brand of rugby that they play. We know they come out swinging and from minute one. Their offloading game, their ability to find space, whether it be kick into space, pass into space. Again, they've got a decent driving maul, and they just produce, rugby players with a great skill set who want to go out there and play rugby. And I don't think that the changing weather conditions is going to change that at all. Really, I think they're going to be absolutely fine until the end of the season.
Unbelievable start to this half term. They are top of the log, but they're still being chased down by Sir Tommy Riches. We seem to be mentioning them every week, and quite rightly so. They had another good win, and again, that was last Thursday against Dean Close School, a school I know reasonably well. They used to be on the circuit when I was at Magdalen College School, and over in Cheltenham, Always been, always will be, hotbed. Bit of a local derby, that one as well, but 43-19, still close on Sedbergh's heels. And just looking ahead to their next half term, they've got Clifton coming up just before half term, actually. They've got Bloxham too. But then after half term, they'll have the grammar schools, Cheltenham College, Kingswood. So it's not going to get any easier for Tommy Riches.
No, and when we just mentioned that fixture list there, didn't we? You know, everyone they're playing is a powerhouse in that area, and that would have hurt Andrew Stanley, who's a head of rugby at Dean Close, who's a good old friend of mine. But again, a points fest, 43-19. It doesn't scream that Dean Close were out of the game at any stage, but Sir Tommy Rich is playing some great rugby, and that confidence is building for them. I think just getting over the line again this week, and it'll be they've got some great fixtures. Them versus Clifton College will be a really, really good game.
That will be a belter, and that will definitely point towards whether they're going to stay in the mix in that top three. For me, it feels like that fixture will definitely tell us the story of how the rest of their season in the Daily Mail Trophy is going to go. And then if we talk about points fest and we talk about tries being scored, we can look no further than a school that we gave a huge shout out to actually last week, Wellington College. I listened back to the pod for editing purposes, and certainly not as a narcissist. And I was like, right, how is Wellington getting on? Well, 60 points to 7 against your old school Dulwich College, mate. I mean, it sounds as if they've had a field day there. And they're now in the top three of the Daily Mail Trophy and looking to go from strength to strength.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned them, every single week. The quality and the brand of rugby they play into space. I saw a couple of their tries online. The crossfield kick. They know how to manipulate the space, and they're really, really well taught from year 9 upwards. And they get some great kids in from the local prep schools. But again, what another game coming up for them this weekend? Millfield.
Millfield coming up, Cheltenham College, then they go into the St Joe's Festival. Now, we've referenced that before, and maybe our guest who's been waiting patiently in the wings will add some further comment to this. It's okay looking at it now. I mean, if I look out of my window, it's Monday afternoon, Monday lunchtime, the sun's out. I mean, I wish I was playing rugby today at the ripe old age of 43. It's unbelievable out there. Post St Joe's, post October half term, it's going to look a lot different for a lot of these schools. So whilst we're looking at that Daily Mail Trophy League, we're looking at the top 10, we're wondering who's going to be there or thereabouts. Things could change over the next month. There is no doubt about that. And then if we scroll a little bit further down on schools rugby and look at the fixtures coming up for Wellington, they've got Clifton, they've got Lord Wandsworth, they've got Sedbergh, they've got Tunbridge, they've got Brighton College, and they've got Gordon's. I mean, really, it's an absolute who's who. We spoke probably in week 1 about putting your head on the chopping block. I mean, you're grinning, Phil. It's tasty, isn't it?
It's great, isn't it? Sedbergh Wellington's going to be a hell of a game, isn't it? That's going to be a really, really good game of rugby. Two sides you both like to play and are scoring tries for fun at the moment. That could decide the league, couldn't it? That really could decide the league. Who comes out on top in that one? That really, really could decide the league. And not wanting to sort of throw off anybody else who's up there. So Tommy Riches will be in there. Clifton will have something to say about things. Millfield will have something to say about things. But that Sedbergh Wellington College game really, really could play a part in who wins and who loses the league.
And mate, you've been saying it week on week. You really have. And it's really stuck with me this point that actually the beauty and the joy of the Daily Mail Trophy is you've got to keep turning up week on week. It's just not a case of going, okay, there's a cup tie, let's get up for it. You've got to keep fielding the best squad you can, the best team that you can put out there. And then you spoke about it as well last week about all the external pressures around school life, music exams, mock exams, university entrance, just your day-to-day, doing your lessons. Do you know what I mean? It's some life for a first 15 rugby player these days, but quite remarkable. So just to recap, we've got Wellington College in third at the moment with 5.65 merit points. We've got Tommy Riches, 5.9, and then we've got Sedbergh with 6. But our guest who's been waiting patiently in the wings for 10 minutes. The first time I met this man was actually playing rugby against him. Uncompromising rugby player, playing for Chinner at the time, and I was playing for Oxford Harlequins. I won't remind him actually of the day because we travelled over to Chinner. I am going to remind him. We travelled to Chinner and we managed to get a scalp that day. It was unbelievable. But Joe Winpenny, we'll just introduce you, mate. St Edward's head of rugby. How are you? Thanks for being on.
I'm all good. Thank you for having me. You can dine out on that result, Russell. It didn't happen very often when a Quins team met a Chinner team. So remember it because they're few and far between.
Great to see your old club, actually, while we digress. Great to see Chinner going well, mate. Flying high these days, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely flying. I think a lot of credit has to go to Simon Vickers, who owns Rectory Homes, who has put an awful lot of time, effort, and cash ultimately into the club. But I think one thing that Chinner has always sort of kept true is its community feel. And you go down there on a Sunday, and there's 600 kids running around the fields, and they're very keen to engage the local community, and they're getting upwards of nearly 2,000 people, particularly to their Friday night lights games. That's a real testament to where they've come. It's unfortunate working in the environment that I work in when we're in school on Saturday that I can't get down there more, because I know a lot of my old boys that I used to play with, they're down there on a Saturday afternoon enjoying a few jars and enjoying the hospitality.
Oh, I love that, mate. I really do. I'll have to see if I can get down there myself. But you just mentioned Friday Night Lights, and we want to dive straight into your game against Magdalen College School, where there was over 1,000 people
Yeah,
at
about
Italy Road.
1,500 people at Iffley Road, which is pretty cool. We bust around 400 kids down, and then there were an extra sort of 300 tickets sold to mums and dads and families and friends, and then Magdalen very similar, and then there were some people that came in off the streets to watch. So yeah, hell of an occasion. It was amazing.
What did they see, mate? The people off the street, what did they see that night? Because it looked like a brilliant, brilliant evening for you, but it looked like a good game. Magdalen's first game of the season, probably
Yeah,
not yours though.
I
Yeah.
think, Magdalen probably shocked us a little bit. Our supporters were still, because of the earlier kickoff, we kicked off at 5:30 rather than 6:30, 7 o'clock as we usually would. Our crowd was still stuck in the Oxford traffic. As you know, Ross, that can be a bit of a nightmare. So we ran out to hardly anybody, and then Magdalen caught us napping in that first sort of 5 minutes of the game, or first play of the game really, and scored an early try. But I think after that, it was a little bit one-way traffic, really.
So, Joe, talk to us about the season in general so far. How's it been going for you guys?
It's been a really good. I mean, we've had a really good start. If I'm being completely honest, we had a week in school, a pre-season week in school, where the boys, it's a really good opportunity for the lads not to have any of those distractions around. With us being a boarding school as well, we could house them, and they could live, breathe, sleep rugby, eat rugby for a whole week, which definitely puts us into a good position when it comes into those first blocks of games, particularly when we are playing against some day schools who might not have had that luxury. So that was a really amazing week, and each year we try to theme our season, and we're theming this season around like what's this thing. I don't know if either of you guys read the book Belonging by Owen Eastwood. So we're theming it around some of that stuff, around like what's your chapter in this story that like for Teddy's rugby. So there's loads of stuff that we've linked in, some of our playbooks linked into some of the stuff that's mentioned in there. So just trying to bring it to life a little bit, and the boys have really really taken that on and taken that on board. So that's really pleasing to see. So just gives us that really good opportunity to embed some of that theming stuff before we get into the nitty gritty of the season, and people having to manage their time from an academic point of view, and all their extracurricular stuff as well as their rugby. So yeah, started first game against Red and Blue Coat, really good, probably a great result if you look at it. Probably if we look at the game as a whole, we were probably a little bit disappointed with the score sheet. We had 16 line breaks and only converted 4 of them. So there's lots of work to do the previous week on what our push through looks like for when we're making those line breaks, and our decisions post line break. Followed that up with a game of Merchant Taylors. Considering the previous year we'd gone down 20 points to 5 to Merchant Taylors, so we've also almost had a 50-point swing in that game. So that was a really pleasing effort from the boys, and we didn't have a lot of the ball in that game, but some of the stuff that I was really pleased with, we were really difficult to score against. Um, uh, and we were comfortable without the ball and willing to like take our opportunities when we had it. That obviously then took us into the Friday nights lights game, and with these Friday night lights game, it's the additional pressure of a big crowd. For some of the lads, it's the biggest game they'll have ever played in and will ever play in terms of people and bums on seats and people watching them. And that can, you guys know, that can create a different type of pressure. And we're really thankful here with our sports program, and the fact that we can work with a sports psychologist. We had Becca Hickman come in the week before, who looked at how we deal with performance anxiety, and are you positioning yourself and preparing yourself to shine or not, and on those occasions. And to be fair to the boys were unbelievable. They definitely shone. And then obviously into our cup game last week against Abingdon, and then Exeat, and then we're back into it again cut this coming week with Dean Close. So yeah, it's been a pleasing start to the season, but I also think there is an awful lot more to come from the group.
And I mean, you're top 10 at the moment. One of the reasons we got you on, also, you're a great rugby man, known you for years, and you're doing amazing things at the school. And Teddy's a school where I suppose, is it right in saying, and do pick me up if I'm wrong here, it's kind of fluctuates. I certainly know that 15, 20 years ago, Teddy's was really flying high and then went co-ed. And obviously that's going to impact your sport, isn't it? You halve the number of boys that you've got to select from. The rowing goes really well at Teddy's as well. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit about how it's been an upward trajectory with your rugby program, and particularly the first 15 over the last couple of years? But mate, keeping those lads involved in the rugby program when the rowing boat is calling them potentially.
Yeah, I think if we sort of we remove the two sports away from each other. I mean, obviously the head of rowing has got his eyes on a couple of the boys currently in the first 15 because they're big bits of kit and they can probably pull quite well on an erg. Getting them in a boat is a very different story. Okay, some of them are 110 kilos plus. Now you put a 110 kilo bloke in a boat, everyone else has got to pull him. So there is that element of it. But on an erg, they go really well. But I think the biggest changing point, I think, was just before I started here, was the fact that our sports department became professional. So most of the heads of sport now and our sports professionals were not teaching members of staff. So what that gives us is that extra time to get that extra love. We can give our programs that extra love where if you're a geography teacher or a housemaster and you're running your sports program on top of that, what's going to take the priority now, particularly for those housemasters, the priority is the pastoral issues in house. Those everything else has to drop for those. But that means that we've been able to really we've been able to spend a lot more time with our really talented individuals in terms of upskilling them and making sure that their development is on the right track, particularly if they're in academy pathways. But it also means that we're available for everyone. So our office is right in the heart of school. We're not removed from the rest of the school. We're in the cloisters, right next to the dining hall. We have an open door policy. Anyone could come and knock on the door and speak to us about any aspect of their game, whether that's technical, tactical, psychological, or physical. They can come and have a conversation with us, which hopefully has helped to accelerate things a little bit quicker and put us back, put the school and the program back to where hopefully eventually back to where you remember it, Russ, of 15 years ago, and that ultimately is the goal. We want to be one of the top rugby playing schools in the country, co-ed or not.
Great. And Joe, I mean, I wrote it down in my notes here, as you mentioned it earlier. The level of detail that you can now give those pupils on that pathway, whether that be talking to them about a number of line breaks, because you are a sports professional, the amount of time you can go through, video with them or talk about their psychology. It just appears that the whole of the school rugby program, not just in your school, clearly you guys are doing a great job, but it's almost had this level up approach in the last 10 years, and it's become far more professional and far more supportive of the boys on their journey, and and the girls on their journeys as well. Is that something you're seeing across the board as well?
Yeah, I think definitely. If I think back to, I think a bit that I came from a state school. I came from state school, then went into university rugby, and then transitioned to independent school. So I didn't really know what it would look like before. So I always take my I always lean on the OSC, the old St Edwardians, and sort of get their feedback. And a lot of the time the feedback that we're getting is, God bloody hell, we wish we had this. We wish my team had this level of detail or this level of sessions, or had access to it as much S&C and video and all that type of stuff. So, but I don't think that's exclusive to us. I think that is becoming more common across the sector. I think, in the schools potentially where it is a teacher or a housemaster that is running the rugby program, there is a level of professional support underneath that from either external coaches or full-time professionals that can support them. Yeah, but like I said, it's not exclusive to us. I think that's becoming more common.
Definitely. And we did similarly at King's actually a few years ago. We put in a structure that the head of rugby, who also was, head of house and had pastoral roles involved, I was on with him. But actually we brought Dave Ward in, the Harlequins hooker, to come in and do work with us. And basically he would take the lion's share. He'd take 75% of the session really, because obviously using his brilliant coaching arsenal, if you like, and then we would do the bits around that, because you're coming out to a session thinking, right, have I sorted out every bus that needs to go somewhere? Is that pastoral thing dealt with? Whereas you can hand over to that rugby professional. Certainly at first 15 level, I still think there's a place throughout the program to have those teachers and that care and the people who've been around school environments for 10, 20 years through the spine of the school. But there's no doubt now you're seeing the premier first 15 rugby programs being supported by the likes of yourself, where you said it there, you were state school, you were a university program, you played at an excellent level, therefore you've got the detail. And with that detail, are you using VO? Are you using lots of video analysis? Do you just want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so we will use VO. I mean, if I lived in a utopian world, I'd have a man that was filming, can zoom into every scrum and zoom out and all that type of stuff. But resources are what they are. So there's no, we might as well use the technology that's there that makes our life a lot easier. So yeah, we'll film every game, particularly from a first team perspective. The lads will get the file on a Sunday afternoon. So that gives them time before we review on a Monday, or preview the next week on a Monday, where they've been able to look at their clips and they've been able to come up with some timestamps. Because, like I say, because I haven't got to worry about getting to a teaching lesson. If some boys have got frees, they might have some individual clips. Whilst I'll deliver on the team stuff, they might have some individual clips that they want to run through with me, and I've got the time in order to be able to invest in them and do that with. So yeah, we definitely utilize that technology that's available. Our grads this year are pretty good. So we've had a big conversation, some big training with them, particularly around, right, these are our principles of play. These are the things that I'm going to need you to clip up from a team perspective. And so far so good. But we are only 5 weeks into the term.
They might run out of steam, those grads, after they've been there a while, but let's
Yeah,
hope they don't. And then also, it's not just the school that investing in your program, is it, Joe? I think lots of schools are now linked to academies and clubs. Do you want to just talk a bit more about how Gloucester are involved in upskilling your players and your coaches, and kind of how that's working? That link that you announced, which is great to see, with Wayne Thompson and the guys at Gloucester Academy.
Yeah, so it's a new product that they've sort of come out with called Finding the Edge. The whole basis, if we're going to sort of sum it up in a nutshell, but if we look at it from a rugby delivery perspective, we've got two of their under-16s academy coaches that will come in on a weekly basis. The whole purpose of that is for us to be able to, for that expertise to be able to get out across our program. So they will coach on a Tuesday and a Thursday from under 14 Bs all the way up to first team. They'll have those. They'll have their own teams which they coach and they're with on a Saturday, but they'll have their exposure across the whole week, across the whole program. They understand what our playing principles are, so they're able to be experienced professionals. They're able to coach around that without me having to go into too much detail, which then hopefully what the whole purpose of that is, then we're preparing our boys for the next part of their rugby journey. So we're preparing our under 14s for what under 15s might look like. We're prep and so on and so forth until it's under 16s up into first team, and the detail that we go into at a first team perspective. So that's been really good. I think the biggest thing is around helping our coaches to develop, because like you say, with all school programs, you're going to have some very, very experienced coaches who know their X's and their O's inside out, but you're also going to have those ones that are coaching because it's part of their contract and they have to. So, and unfortunately, the nature of the beast is, and I don't know whether this is right or whether this is wrong, those coaches are usually the ones that are working with the less able. So actually, the less able probably need the more able from a coaching perspective. However, that's just not that's just not the way it works. So we're hopeful in the fact that those Gloucester coaches, when they come into program, they can really upskill the current coaches that we've got, so that those guys are confident in delivering things when the Gloucester coaches aren't here. There'll be some stuff around CPD. So on a Monday, like we might look at every term. The Gloucester guys will put on a series of CPD for all of our coaches. What we'll start to look at is how can we expand that to the local community? So can we then start to invite, on our doorstep here from a prep school perspective, we've got Summerfields and Dragon literally within stone's throw of the school. Can we start to invite those rugby coaches into our program to get that same level of CPD that our coaches getting, but expand that out to everyone else? So that's what the future looks like. I think one of the other things that which is forming a real strong part of the partnership is around player recruitment. Because ultimately that in this day and age, particularly with VAT and the pressures, and you need to have something shiny and something attractive that attracts kids to your school. And I think with now that foundation phase, or the DPP as it were, that's gone on a year to being that, they're in at under 15s rather than under 14s. Actually, for us to be able to say to prospective rugby playing parents, your child's going to get eyes on from a Gloucester Academy coach a year earlier than most others. Hopefully that will be quite a big pull. What it looks like at under 18 level, Wayne, giving his background in education, totally understands that there is no point presenting a potential player to come to Teddy's if academically they might struggle when they get in the classroom. So he's got a really good understanding of where his under 16 group are academically, who's looking for those opportunities within other schools, and actually being able to present the right kids for us to be able to have a conversation with. So yeah, there's loads of it's really exciting, and I think for us particularly, it's going to be a bit of a game changer moving forward.
And that professional development piece is just so important and so significant in schools, isn't it? Where there is a slight reluctance from some staff now to be on rugby coaching sessions, and also just a slight lack of experience and probably never played the game. But we all know on this call that your 14C, your 14B player could end up being first 15. We had the story at Kings where we had a 14D go to 15A, and then Harlequins were sniffing around him, and then he ended up, playing first team. And that's just fantastic. That's what it's all about. But that's only going to happen if you've got somebody teaching him the principles, teaching the fundamentals at that foundational development age, isn't it? So, no, awesome to hear. But, mate, just reverting back to the Daily Mail trophy, you've had eyes on Abingdon, who are in the top 10 now. We were just chatting off this call just about how you got on against them. Obviously, they're defeating the Schools Cup, and you were saying that their forward runners off 9 were decent.
Yeah, I think if I'm thinking about the difference between the two sides on the day, that would have been the real difference. It was like the contact intensity, particularly from them middle row and their back row of the forward pack. That was the real difference, and like just contact intensity and particularly evasion pre-contact. That was the difference between the two teams, and it's how they scored. They scored a couple of their tries actually just from just being really aggressive, carrying really hard, getting through not accepting that the tackle had been made, almost imagining that the tackle line was another 5 meters back from where it was. Yeah, they were really strong.
And one to watch then. Are you saying next few weeks going into half term, Abingdon, we could see them climb up this table?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure who they've got coming up, but I think depending if they've got a few schools, it might be slightly easier. I think they'll move up, or they'll definitely be within that top 10 by the end of the year for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't let up for them, actually. They've got RGS High Wycombe, Solihull, they've got Radley just after half term, so that'll be a big one. They've got Eton as well coming up. And again, Eton always put out good teams. We used to play them at Kings. I know lots of boys play football there these days, lots and lots of boys, but they'll always put up a stiff test. And then, Phil, you got chatting to Zoran Higgins over at St Benedict's, who they had another good win against Magdalen College, who have had a bit of a shout out this pod, bless them. But how is Zoran? They're 5th at the moment in the table.
Yeah, Zoran's, in fine fettle, actually, as he usually is, particularly when his side have got a win under their belts. But no, really excited, and he sent over some clips of the rugby that the boys are playing, and they're playing a great brand of rugby. So I think they're doing a really, really good job. They've got a tough fixture list coming up as well. They'll play Hampton and Windsor School for Boys and Shiplake and a few others. They obviously had the tough loss against Harrow in the Schools Cup, but apart from that, they've gone really, really well in the Daily Mail Schools Trophy. And I think the brand of rugby was something I just wanted to ask you about, Joe, and all the investment in schools and everything you mentioned that you're doing differently. What have you noticed about the brand of rugby that's being played on the school circuit? Because I can give you my opinion, but I'll let you go first.
I think depending on who you play will depend on who. Like if it's an independent school who's been really well coached, who's getting there, 3-4 sessions a week, they'll play some really pretty stuff. But if you're playing potentially a grammar school who's getting their 1 session a week, it might not look pretty, but it can be blooming effective. Like I say, the majority of the teams that we play against, they play some pretty rugby. And most people are looking to offload. You can tell that there's an awful lot of skill development going on within those programs around what their contact skills look like. People really working hard to get hands free. But I always say to our lads is your offload's only as good as your support. And that's one thing that I've definitely noticed so far this season is the fact that support lines, particularly off those ball carriers that are trying to get hands free, trying to use a little bit of footwork pre-contact or within the contact, the support lines are improving. Whereas probably a couple of years ago, you might have seen a player just dive with the ball and we go ruck and defense gets set and then we run out of space on the edge. There's an awful lot more teams trying to go through you rather than around you. That's definitely one of the differences that I've noticed.
Yeah, and I would back that up actually, Joe, by saying the rugby I've seen this term, when it's that broken field defence and that broken field picture, the best schools have got that ability to pick off that isolated defender, whether they be in the 15, whether it be a fullback, whether it be somebody corner flagging. The skill set is tremendous. They're flooding through in support. They're hungry for the try. And I think that's why we're seeing such high score lines at the moment, aren't we? We're seeing genuine athleticism, but a skill set to get there as well when the break is made.
Yeah, I think also as well what we're seeing is, we are really starting to see the effort that's been put into strength and conditioning programs starting to come to the fore because you can't play an offloading game if you can't get over the gain line. So what you're seeing is you're seeing a lot of boys now who are big bits of kit who are able to tie in 3 or 4 defenders and then get the pass away. Then you know as well as I do, Phil particularly. When you've got big bits of kit getting over the gain line, tying those defenders in and getting defenses narrow, it's a field that it's easy for backs.
Well, listen, in my day, you were hauled off if you tried to offload, so it was absolutely banned. It was great that that development's come in the game. In actual fact, it's absolutely true. I was hauled off for Exeter Chiefs. We were playing Waterloo at home, and I threw a missed pass from our own 22. We scored in the top right corner, and I was pulled off the pitch. And that was the way it was. We wasn't encouraged back in those. So it's great to see that being encouraged. And I think also, the development of sevens and the Roslyn Park and the offloading that you see in that, and those top players playing in that and being developed all the time is just it's great to see. And it's happening in the Premiership and happening in international rugby, and it's filtering down. And it's to Russ's point, athleticism, skill set, and mindset to go out and play the game is really, really changed in that first 15 level, which is great to see. Russ, Joe, thanks for your time. Before we kind of wrap things up here, there's a couple of things I just wanted to mention, but Stowe. We haven't really heard much from anyone at Stowe, so if anyone in Stowe is listening to the pod, please do get in touch. You've had a cracking start to the season, and we'd love to hear a bit more about your programme and how it's going, but clearly a strong start to the season for you guys. And somebody that you'll be playing later down the line, Joe, you'll be playing Stowe at some stage, I think it's on the fixture list, and they've got a cracking game against Rugby coming up this weekend, so that should be a good one. Well, maybe we'll get you back on. Maybe we'll have a dual header between you and the head of Rugby at Stowe the week before.
Grant would love that.
Yeah, if we could also, if Henry Pollock's listening to this, if we could get Henry Pollock on just to talk about his old school, I'd love that. I've also just want to ask him a few questions about the plate final a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, there is that. And then, another one, we've mentioned today, Radley versus Cranley coming up this weekend, which I think is going to be a great game. And I've got a tip that Radley are going to be in that top 10 come the end of the season. I think they've got a good side. And again, they play on a good circuit, well coached by Nick Wood and all the guys up at Radley. And, they're clearly doing a good job up there. Russ, any further thoughts ahead of the weekend?
No, I've just got to say a big shout out actually to my old school KCS Wimbledon, and the closest, and I believe this is a fact, the closest derby you can get in school rugby, literally over the road, Wimbledon College. Although it was away, actually, it was down at the college grounds just down the hill, but a 36-9 win for Kings there. There was a couple more draws as well, just the weekend of the draws, wasn't it? We had Bromsgrove and Oakham 26 all, and we had Stamford and Warwick 19 all, so a couple of Midland derbies there. I can only imagine the scenes at full time. But as Phil has said there, we'd love to hear from more heads of rugby. Joe was kind enough to give up his time and I reached out to him. We would love to get more DORs on heads of rugby, masters in charge of rugby, whatever title you use these days. Come on, let's get you on the pod, talk about your programme and maybe pass comment about all the positive stuff that's happening out there, the teams that you've played against, because Joe's been kind enough to do that today.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And then finally for me, just the other one we've not mentioned today, but Kesbath going really, really well. Great win over Camford the other week, and they'll play Collegiate in a big old derby in Bristol this weekend. Should again be a cracking fixture, but they've gone really, really well. So if there's anyone out there at Kesbath you want to come on and talk about their programme, we'd love to hear from you. But listen, guys, thanks very much. Joe Winpenny, thank you so much for your time and giving up your time and sharing your knowledge on your programme. I'm sure it's happening, and good luck to all the heads of rugby and all the teams going out this weekend. That's been Joe Winpenny. That's been Large. I've been Little. please do like and subscribe. Get yourself onto schoolsrugby.co.uk. Check out all the results. Check out the league. And if your results are outstanding, you've got any problems, email the guys at Sox. Get your results in, and good luck this weekend. Thanks, guys.